All right, we're here for our third interview today, and I'll let the gentleman to my right introduce himself.
I'm FP Mike Lynch, and in the Navy at 17. Joined the fleet with Halsey when I was 17. Started in the Marshall Islands and went all the way to Tokyo Bay.
So you
all
served.
the battles in between.
So you served in the Pacific?
Yes, in the Pacific.
Okay. What brought you to joining the service?
Well, all my brothers had left prior to me going. I was the youngest of the four brothers. They were all gone. And my father wouldn't sign the papers. He said, "You're going to stay here." You had to get a signature in them days if you were under 18.
Right.
Finally, he heard I was skipping school, so he said, "You better go join your brothers." So then he got in and left.
So what made you decide to go with the Navy?
Well, I always liked ships. I loved ships and boats all my life when I was young. So it's quite a voyage. Great cruiser.
So what were you doing before you joined the service? You said you were in school?
I was just in school, yeah.
Okay.
They do odd jobs, make a buck on the street jobs, you know, junk and iron and metal.
So were you from this area originally?
Yes, from Medford, Charlestown originally. I was born in Bunker Hill.
Oh, okay.
In Monument Square. That's right in Charlestown by the Navy Yard, if you're familiar with.
I'm not familiar with the
that.
Navy Yard.
The Charlestown Navy Yard is one of the best destroyer bases in the world during World War II. They made beautiful ships in there. We have one in there now. It's the Cassin Young was with me at Okinawa. She's a monument to history now. And I used to go in and paint her when my legs were in pretty good shape. I can't do that no more. So I just turned 81 in June, so this June.
So you said your father wasn't too keen on you joining up.
No, he figured 3 brothers was enough, you know. He didn't want to get many more.
How did your mother feel about it?
She didn't want anybody to go. She wanted to stay home.
Where did you do your basic training and what did you think of it?
Went to Sampson, New York. It was all right. It was winter time, cold, but it was good.
Yeah.
It didn't last too long. They had to get guys out. They had a lot of ships to man, you know.
Yeah.
They were building ships left and right.
So how many weeks was your basic training?
Probably 8.
What was your, I'm assuming you had a specialty at an area of expertise?
Well, no, I was in the boiler room. I started out down as a sniper in the boiler room. They called them snipes, who were down below decks, doing steam work and steam boilers. Then you root for something else and you hope you get into another division. I ended up getting in the electrical division, which was a good start. And never went to school for it. You had to learn from the guy you worked with. It was at first class. He was a regular Navy man, and he taught you everything he could. He was good. So I ended up with the gyro compasses and all the navigational aids on the ship. There's a lot of them on a big warship. So it worked out good. I ended up second class when I got out, second class petty officer.
Did you experience any type of culture shock when you went off to basic training and you met so many people from all over the country, or was there?
Well, yeah, we had kids on there, never had shoes, you know, come from West Virginia, never had shoes until they went in the fleet. They lived in the hills, they didn't have anything, you know. That was a culture shock right there.
Yeah.
You think today they have 8 or 10 pair of sneakers in the closet here today. Because we do talk to students here every year at Veterans Week at the high school. We take a shot at them all. It does. If you get 1 or 2, win them over, you've done something good. So I don't know where their heads are, but they're not where they should be. But nothing I can do about that. So
yeah. Did you see any action?
Oh yeah.
Any heavy action?
We had 8 major battles in the Pacific with Japanese warships, kamikazes, bombardments, invasions. Everything. We covered everything from Marshall Islands right up to Okinawa. And then the next move, we figured we'd all been gone anyway. If we hit the mainland of Japan, we'd have figured we'd lost 1 million men landing there. That's the next stop. Yeah. That's when Harry Truman dropped the bomb. Thank God, because we'd all been gone. We'd never made it there. They fight for the end there. So put men on that beach. They had it all mined already. They knew something was going to happen. So it was booby-trapped everywhere. We had undersea divers checking it. Everything was loaded. we did go in and give them some surprises with the aircraft carriers, because we had the greatest aircraft carriers. Then we had a whole string of them. They called them the Marauders, and they were good.
Huh. What were your thoughts the first time that you were involved in a?
Well, everybody was scared, I'm sure. Anybody said he wasn't scared is a liar, so you have to say that. Because in most ships, you get hit, and you never see some of them guys again. They're gone. They get torpedoed. And kamikaze get on your midsection and blow you in half. It was just everything's in there from the ship's log. That's why I tell you, if you could read right from the ship's log, everything is right on the money. You have to log everything that the ship does every day in that logbook. Mm-hmm. That's where they copied that in Washington.
Now you said you served in the Pacific
all the time in the Pacific.
And did you think that the Europe or the Pacific was more important than the other?
Oh no, we had to go. We were fighting a war in 2 or 3 parts of the world at the same time. I had a brother, for instance, China, Burma, India in the Air Corps. Red landed D-Day in France, and me and Jimmy were in the Pacific. He was on a destroyer and I was on a cruiser. Yeah. And I did meet him at sea, which is probably once in a lifetime, and that happened with that many warships.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, they come alongside with the mail. The destroyers used to deliver the mail to the bigger warships. They go by and fly a net, bring the mail, and I looked at the number and I said, geez, that's my brother's 572. So I run up to the bridge. You couldn't use your radios because there was Jap subs around, so you had to use the flag, and the flags or the light, single light. Right. They flashed over. A message come back that night, I'll meet you in Ulysses. He was on watch in the boiler room. He couldn't have got up there anyway to see me because they had company right away. You're moving all the time. You can't slow down. You got to keep moving 20 knots or more because you keep out of the sub's eye. Yeah. And he blasted the hell. Oh, I got to be careful. He blasted the business out of me for coming out there and joining up. He said you were supposed to stay home.
Now, did he know before that you had joined up?
Well, he knew I was in it. He never dreamed he'd meet me out there.
Yeah. Did you have any hatred towards the Japanese or even the Germans?
Well, it's hard to say, but when I've seen some of the things they did to nice people, young people, women, on some of them, they said it was atrocious. So couldn't be any worse than the Nazis. They were all copies. Now they're all just other kids now. I mean, we got a pitcher in Boston now. They can't wait to see him pitch.
Yeah,
so there's no hatred there.
How did you feel when you learned about the concentration camps, if you will, of the Japanese that was here?
Well, it just spurred you on to try to get even a little bit, for all the people they'd done away with. They had them in China, Burma, India, guys that were American. They did an awful job. They called them death march. They walked them until they died. A lot of the kids never made it. Hunger, water, no water, nothing. Just punch them right into the ground. Just march them every day into the sun. People remember them things.
Yeah, but did you think that the Japanese concentration camps here in America, did you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think they did the right thing because you don't know who, you knew who your enemy was, but you didn't know them people there might be faithful to the ones on the other side. Now, for instance, we sunk a sub off the East Coast here, a German sub. And when the debris come up from the sub, it was Bond bread labels in it.
It was what?
Bond bread is a local baker. And the Italian fishermen were feeding them out there at night in the dark, taking care of the Germans. So that shows you who's faithful to who, Where they get Bond bread, they didn't come in and buy it. Yeah. Somebody had to bring it out to them. So these are things people don't know about, Because after they sink a sub, they watch the debris come up, pick up everything they can. That's what they picked up. Right away, they knew who it was. They had fishermen that were faithful to Italy, which was Mussolini at the time. Right. And they were working for their home country.
I think this would be a good time. Do you have any particularly interesting or things that struck you in terms of battles that you did see that just stuck with you?
Well, from the time we got in the Okinawa area, we were constantly being dumped on by the kamikazes. Day and night they were coming out. It was just the last pitch for them because we knew they were desperate then. because the next stop would have been their homeland. And they come day and night, screaming in. You know.
What did you?
That was a suicide thing. It's like
Yeah.
they got over there now, we're dealing with another bunch of
Right.
screwballs who want to commit suicide.
What did you think the first time that you saw that somebody was willing to sacrifice themselves like
I
that?
couldn't believe it. I mean, you look up and see them things pouring down on you, and the parts of their wings are ripping off, and they're still coming in. As long as they can control the aircraft, they're going to take you out with them.
Huh. Now, what was the type of defense used to try
Well,
and just
our
haul 'em out of
greatest,
the air before?
our greatest 5-inch and 40 millimeter, boy, we could put up more firepower. It looked like rain clouds up there, black all over the sky. Because we had to keep, my job was to keep them off the aircraft carriers, because once you put a hole in the carrier deck, that's a useless piece of equipment. You can't land or take off on a carrier with a big hole in the flight deck.
Right.
Most times they burned, sunk. They got a good hit on them. We lost a lot of them.
Huh. What did you think of your superior officers?
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had William G. Layla, great gentleman, good captain. He was so brilliant, they landed a PBY alongside and took him back to the States to plan the Okinawa invasion. He was so sharp.
Huh.
He knew more about the Pacific than he did about New York. He was a brilliant man. Then he came back and joined us again after they went back for a planning stage.
Huh. So, did you or any of your shipmates ever disobey an order from one of your superior officers?
I was caught taking bread out of officers' country. That's the thing. Nobody did anything. The guy who caught me was the chaplain.
Uh-huh.
I come out, my shirt was full of bread because they had goodies that we never got. You know, after you're at sea so many weeks, fresh food is far and few between. You didn't get anything.
Uh-huh.
Everybody had a coffee pot, and you get all the coffee you want. One thing I never run out in the Navy was coffee.
Uh-huh.
But the fresh food disappears fast when you're feeding 3 squares a day and you never go in for a while. So you stay out sometimes 30, 60 days without going in. So
Uh-huh.
they brought a lot of material out to us and transfer it at sea. But food was, you could only so much refrigeration, you know, you didn't have that much refrigeration.
Yeah.
Stay out. Once the fresh food was gone, they're in the dehydrated powdered stuff. And everybody lose their appetite when they eat a few dishes of that.
Do you think that there was any misconceptions by the American public about World War II?
I don't think so. The whole country was gung-ho them days. Boy, they couldn't do enough for you.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. They treated all the crew, sailors, soldiers, Marines, they treated you beautiful when you come to the States, finally when the war ended. You couldn't do enough. They would pick you up on the highway, take you to the nightclubs for supper and everything. Nowadays, you don't pick anyone up in a car.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
For sure. Did you see the sequel, Band of Brothers?
No, I heard about it. It reminds me of my own, the Brothers Four, the Lynches. But they were all over the world, and we all made it home, and they're in the worst parts of the war. Red landed D-Day. He got shot at St. Lo, and then he got shot again further up in the Battle of the Bulge, but he made it.
So all your brothers came
They all
back?
made it home. They're all gone now from natural causes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Being the youngest, they were all on the wall. We just finished 2 years ago. I don't know if you've seen our wall up there in Medford.
No, I
Oh,
haven't.
too bad you didn't have time. It's right up near the high school.
Uh-huh.
10,300 young men and women served in World War II from Medford, and the population was only in the 50,000 range.
Huh.
1/5 the population was the war.
Wow.
And they're all on that wall now for history, like you're doing, a little bit of history.
Yeah.
That's why you gotta keep it alive. We depend on people like you to keep this alive, because we don't want the youngest to ever forget what happened.
Right, that's the idea.
We want them to know that a lot of guys never made it, so they could enjoy this life.
Mm.
It's still the best in the world, don't let no one kid you. It's the best country in the world. I don't know where you've been in the world, but you won't find anything better than this, no matter where you go.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't been overseas.
Well, you'll see
myself,
us,
but-
it's, you gotta see it.
Yeah.
And you
Gotta
can
see this
measure your
world.
own measurement.
Right. Do you have any regrets about going to war or?
No, not at
anything?
all, no. The only regrets we have is the kids we left behind.
Uh-huh.
Never come home, you know, at all. Most of them never made their 18th birthday.
Yeah.
They were all 17, 18. If you had somebody in their 20s or 30s, they were regular Navy men, you know.
Yeah.
but most of them between 17 and 20, all new recruits. Some of them never seen the ocean. Them kids in them hills of Virginia never had shoes. They never seen an ocean. They made great sailors though, after a while.
And what'd you do? What'd you come home to after the war?
Well, there wasn't much around. You had to work 2 or 3 jobs to survive. You know, there's very little work around. Peanuts they paid. You know, I worked in a sweatshop for 89 cents an hour, bagging sugar in Charlestown. Comes down to chute, 100-pound sacks of sugar, 89 cents an hour. You stood there all day trying to put them on pallets. You know, they come down the chute. Then I went into General Electric. When things started getting better, building jet engines, get in there, worked there 4 or 5 years. Then I finally got in the airlines. But I drove for the Teamsters, I drove 18-wheelers, I done everything.
That's
you had to do, you had to get money.
Yeah.
You had to go up in them big buildings in Boston to be a laborer. The only good money around was heavy construction.
Yeah.
And we had Indians showing us how to walk on the planks up there because it's big steel columns but no floors. You're just walking on planks 50 stories up. And you get very good at walking on planks.
How about family-wise? Were your parents grateful to see you and seeing your brothers again?
Well, they were grateful to see us all home, yes.
Yeah.
Very much. My mother, when we left, the woman that owned the house where my mother was renting evicted my mother because she didn't want no children in the house. They evicted my mother during the war. There was 4 boys and she didn't want any of us in her house. It must have been a nut about a house or something. I don't know what her problems were, but that's when my father bought a house when we were all away, so finally bought one. He worked in the telephone all his life, 49 years, so. But there's no money around. He didn't pay any big jobs in them days. There was no money around. I started in the airline industry, $49 a week. 49 a week. They make that in a half hour now, some of these jobs.
Yeah.
You had to go out and hustle 2 or 3 jobs to make a half. If you had a family, I got married in 1950, you had to go out and hustle all the time. Come home from one job and go do another one.
Yeah. Do you have any other interesting stories that you'd like to share?
No, not really. It was just so much warfare all at once. Everything was all at once, you know, near the end of the war. From the Marshall Islands up, it was the end of the Empire of Japan, and they knew it. They knew the handwriting was on the wall, and they put up battles. They didn't want to quit either, but they lost a lot of men trying to make them quit. So. Yeah. Them beaches there at Okinawa and Iwo Jima, God, terrible. You know, 18, 20, 30,000 men winged in them little islands. You know, terrible to lose that many men. And now we end up giving them half of them islands back to them, to the enemy.
Yeah.
Okinawa's theirs now, they think it's theirs. I don't know who owns it really, but all the men we left there, forget it. I wouldn't give them nothing back. But Japan is crunched in for space, so they want to get everything they can in the Pacific. And when that whole thing started, they could have invaded Hawaii, but they didn't have the know-how, because we didn't have much protection then.
Yeah.
But they started with Pearl Harbor, and that was to make their mark. From then in, now mind you, that was 41 December.
Yep.
That's the end of, so 42 was right around the block. In 3 years' time, we beat the greatest magnitude of power in the world. We had no ships left. We built the biggest fleets in history. And they couldn't believe how much we could build when we get mad. 3 years we wiped them out, and they were building for 20 years to get that war started. They were digging in them islands 15 years before they even went into battle, getting ready for it. I don't know where our people are supposed to know what they're doing. They didn't do too much. But Amelia Earhart, who grew up in Medford here, she was a pilot, a woman pilot. You might have read about her. She flew over one of them islands because they did find some debris from an aircraft like hers, and I think she seen too much and they shot her down. We weren't at war then, but she was just going around the world with a little airplane. She got in somebody's way, we think. And that's what happened. I think she's seen a little too much.
She was with Wally Post that time.
Huh?
She was with Wally Post.
Yeah, and I got another woman here in this folder here that worked with me at the airport, Ann Woods. That woman flew 100 airplanes across the ocean as a ferry pilot, bombers. And they ain't even got a monument at the airport. I'm going to try to get a monument to her, but she died just 2 years ago. Ann Wood. What a pilot. She used to talk with me at the airport. I couldn't believe a woman flew all them airplanes, fighters, bombers, anything you wanted to fly, she flew it. She was a brilliant woman. She lived down in that nice part of Massachusetts, down along the ocean there. I can't think of the town. But we produced an awful lot of good pilots. There's one in the other room she just copied now from Charlestown, where I was born on Bartlett Street. He ended up the head of the Blue Angels. Young kid had showed us a picture as a growing up kid, and he ended up the head of the whole Blue Angel group. That is an honor to fly that thing. Going 1,200 miles an hour up there, and your wingtips are probably 18 inches apart. Quite a pilot. We had the best, I tell you. You have to see them every morning go out them carriers and come back with wings broke off, holes in them. They bring them home. They're amazing guys.
Yeah.
Best pilots in the world. We still have the best in the world. Any morning, any day of the week, you look at the clock at 8 o'clock in the morning, we get 8,000 air flights over America, commercial airlines flying. And when 9/11 happened, they put them all in the ground in short time. That's an honor. There ain't a country in the world that compete with them numbers.
Right.
And that's every day of the week, 8,000 flights in the air at 8 o'clock in the morning. Not because I work in the industry, but I know they produce. Some of our best pilots were all ex-warmen, you know. Some of the best.
All right, well, we'd like to thank you for your
Well,
time, telling us your story.
I give you a booklet. I told you can take that and get that into your history books over at school. That's a history of the whole thing. A lot better than I can read it verbatim. That's everything right down through the whole thing, battles and all.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome.